Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Team Angie. I'm Aaron Glenn, private personal consultant, the handler of Team Angie. And just like to do a lot of research. Here we get into anything and everything. But overall, we make money online. And in doing so, we like to be up to date with the latest topics, trends, and everything like that. We're all about mental health awareness because, life is challenging and life gets to become too much from time to time. You often have to take a break and reflect and figure out what's going on. We have to process what the changes are happening in our lives. So, what today's topic is about, nevertheless, Hassan. I know you probably heard that term, that name before, Hassan, right? And it just really dawned on me like Scorpion. They call him Hassan on Mortal Kombat. Dragon Ball Z, when you get all of the Dragon Balls, in case you guys have watched this or have not, it's a semi fantasy cartoon network about these characters. Goku, which is the main character, and he come from a different planet. He's an ape, and he's basically trying to learn how to live on Earth. And he has an earthly family, but then he has his, wherever he came from, those people come as well to here, Earth, and that's basically where it goes, and things get to happening. But nevertheless, right, where he come from, they have this ability to summon a jinn, a genie, and this genie name is Hassan, which is a dragon. You go across the earth, you find these seven Dragon Balls, and once you find them all, you have to have some type of words that you chant. You have to know this secret language to form them, to fuse these balls together to bring out Hassan, the dragon, the genie, or whatever. And nevertheless, right, you heard about Leviathan. Maybe they call him a different name. I don't know. But uh these dragons, it seems so fantasy, right? And this is just for entertainment purposes because I don't know what's real or not. I just like to make believe these type of things. But anyway, right? um the Airbender. If you ever seen that, it's about the elements of Earth. But nevertheless, the Airbender, he is the one that has all of these elements in one. He's basically the airbender, but he has the other elements as well that he can use to his abilities or whatever. So, nevertheless, right, with this guy, and I'm talking about specifically the Airbender, whenever he needs a moment of clarity, whenever he needs to reflect, he'll go within himself and he'll go to this place that he can actually go to. And when he's there, he talks to a dragon. It's not red or whatever, but it's a big, huge dragon. And he sits there and this dragon speaks to him and he tells him the future and maybe he shows him the past. And basically, he's a guidance tool. He's someone that they go to for insights, the same as with Dragon Ball Z, Airbender, and then Mortal Kombat. Because even though Hassan, the snake, the scorpion, he turns into this dragon as well, and also Liu Kang. They all come from this underground, basically, fire breathing. But check this out. This guy who he says he's a part of the Nephilim family, the fallen angels. Some people believe fallen angels are basically the aliens of today. That's what they call these aliens, the fallen angels, or whatever terms and terminology you guys want to go by. But nevertheless, there seems to be some real bloodline here on Earth that says they're an extension of these fallen angels who've created with women on Earth, and they had created Nephilims, which are giants from these angels, these fallen angels, these aliens, whatever you want to call them. And they made it with women on Earth and they created giants. And this guy here claims to be a part of that bloodline of the giants. And I just want you to check out his story and you tell me what do you think about Hassan the dragon and if this stuff is purely make believe or is it something they've been trying to tell us, as well as that cartoon on the cover photo. It came out a while ago, a few years ago, maybe more than a few years ago, to be honest. I don't know the exact date time it came out. I seen a few episodes of it. It was on Cartoon Network, Adult Swim. It comes on at nighttime. What was crazy was like, okay, it's a cartoon, it's something for entertainment, but nevertheless, the direction they took, right? Talking food, the drinks, it's like, are we eating people? Are we drinking people? Are we going in the kitchen and this food that we're making? Is it? And that was something that kind of stuck with me. Like, wow, it's been in our face. A lot of people saying they doing this and doing that with the foods, but you tell me, what do you think? Like, was this a warning to go vegan? I don't know, but check this out. Let's see what we learn about these dragons. And if was they trying to tell us something in these video games and in these cartoons and in these movies?
On one side of it, I think we really do have an entire subspecies of creatures that do exist mostly inside the earth, and they are not readily surface dwelling anymore. And I do believe, like in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, man, inside the London Bridge is a massive room, like a throne room, where they engage in this magic. But this Brotherhood of the Serpent, they call upon Nahash, the dragon. And
would that be in normal terms Satan?
Yeah, most people know him as Satan, right? Yeah. But like there is a great red dragon. Like it's a physical, that's what he looks like in reality. He was cursed, and man, he made him a monster. Yahweh made him a monster. And they would commune with these things. There's 13 grandfathers take 13 of their grandsons, and they bring them into these rooms and do these things on these specific times and rituals for all kinds of stuff. But the dragons tell them the future. This is like always what they've been able to do. Is Satan leads Yeshua up onto a great high place and says, I shows them all the nations of the earth and all their kingdoms and their reigns in a moment of time. He shows them the future. That's what they do. They can show you what's to come. This is why we get hunted by them. He knows if we're going to be part of his adversaries. He knows if we're going to be on his enemy list. And that's why he targets us at our youth. That's what so happens. So many people, they're like, why has my life been a nightmare from the beginning? It's because you have a purpose and a destiny that adversary absolutely categorically does not want to come to pass. It's a real life Terminator scenario. And so he sends his assets in to destroy people, to ruin their life. And those meeting places happen when they sit down in these rooms and they try to call up these creatures. It's from inside the earth. It wasn't like ethereal mist. They were physical things that would come out of these tunnels, and they would come into the room and they would consume the offerings that were given there. And then the words of the Nahash would come forth, and they would prophesy to these guys. Like, they would prophesy out of the mouth of the serpent what each one of their life callings, their shots. He's the shot caller, man. It's like a pimp from prison. He's calling the shots, and you got a bunch of fallen watchers that were in prison in Tartarus for a reason. Yeah, but they got ways of getting messages out, just like the cronies in jail today, and that's what a lot of people are dealing with. They think they're dealing with the top dog, and they're like, I'm finally into the big game. And it's like you're dealing with, a private in the hierarchy, but he can masquerade like a general. And so some people are really dealing with death himself, and some of them are dealing with one of his princes. And this is what my family's covenant was with the dragon. They didn't mess around, man. They went all the way to the chain of command. They uncovered a bunch of my great-grandfather's grandfather was an archaeologist who dug into Indian mounds out in the Ohio River Valley. They started finding a priest class that was these serpent worshipers, and that's what they started calling upon. And they started trying to wake up and rise up Wachiblos, which is these deities, these dragon fire deities.
My bad. Hold on real quick.
Greetings, dear friends. Today,
All right, let me pause that. So it goes a little deeper than that. I just have to pause it for a quick second. But this guy, he goes really into it. And like I was talking about Scorpion, right? And Luke Kane, how they comes from the underground and up. It's like they're really just trying to tell us, they're showing us. A lot of these movies, a lot of these cartoons, a lot of these video games be having the truth in plain sight. Some people like me be like, oh, you talking nonsense or whatever. I'm not fear mongering or anything. I'm just thinking about, like, awareness. having low general make believe discussions about this world that we live in. These people get interested though, like they say the Nephilims had knowledge. They had forbidden knowledge, and them just like the fallen angels, they was teaching people stuff that we wasn't supposed to know. And I could kind of believe that, especially if you're a fallen angel, you come from a realm that have different information. Just like even here, right? Let's just be on a logical level. We all live in different geographics, so especially if you haven't been to another land mass, like out of the country or even different states, different cities, every landmass looks different. So everybody function differently in those different areas. But eventually it all goes full circles, surface around, just like the media entertainment, right? So just imagine if you're on a higher plane where these things aren't discussed, information is used differently, they have different technology, and then they come down and they tell you a little bit of what they know, and now all of a sudden here's the evolution. The lower state of consciousness now have different tools, different discussions, because they have different information within that realm. And it's kind of like what people say, what they call downloads, when that information enters this realm and then they're able to catch that frequency and that what comes with it. But let's check out more about the people that came with this information and what they decided to do with it. Um, I don't know why my shit moving slow, but nevertheless,
We invite you to step into a story that echoes through the ages.
I'm trying to low key put it on full screen and say exit, but I don't know if. All right, I got another thing up too. It's about modeling for you ladies, gentlemen. You want to go into the modeling? It's a little insights to be aware of.
A tale of giants, warriors, and the unwavering power of faith. Beyond the familiar scene of young David triumphing over Goliath lies an epic saga, one filled with untold battles, profound courage, and divine intervention that shaped the destiny of a nation. In this journey, we delve deeper into the aftermath of Goliath's fall, exploring the fierce confrontations with his equally fearsome brothers. These are stories of loyalty, resilience, and the steadfast belief in a higher purpose. They remind us that the greatest battles are not always fought with weapons, but with trust, unity, and the unshakable conviction that light can overcome darkness. Let us walk together through the valleys of history and faith, discovering the timeless lessons that continue to inspire and empower us today. So, settle in and prepare to be captivated by a narrative that is as thrilling as it is meaningful. This is not just history. It is a beacon of hope for every challenge we face, a testament that even the smallest among us can overcome the greatest giants when guided by faith. The story of Goliath, an enduring narrative of courage and faith, begins not merely on the battlefield of the Valley of Elah, but in the fabric of a history steeped in rebellion, divine intervention, and the inexplicable presence of giants. Goliath, the most renowned of these giants, was more than a formidable warrior. He was a symbol of defiance and a living remnant of an ancient, corrupted lineage that challenged the very order of creation.
What if one day could change everything? God has not made a mistake in you, and you're his.
To understand Goliath, we must first delve into the enigmatic origins of his bloodline. The Nephilim, referenced briefly in Genesis 6:4, were described as heroes of old, men of renown. These giants were the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men, a union that defied divine boundaries. Many interpretations suggest that the sons of God were fallen angels who, in their rebellion against heaven, sought to corrupt humanity by intermingling with mortals. The result of this forbidden union was the birth of beings who were not only physically imposing but also morally and spiritually corrupt. Their immense size and unparalleled strength enabled the Nephilim to dominate early civilizations, spreading violence and chaos. Their actions were so egregious that they were one of the reasons God sent the great flood to cleanse the earth of such corruption. Yet, as the biblical narrative unfolds, some Nephilim seemingly survived, or their traits persisted, reappearing in the lineage of figures like Goliath and his brothers. These beings were not merely physical anomalies, they were manifestations of rebellion, a direct affront to the divine order. Their presence on Earth served as a grim reminder of humanity's susceptibility to corruption and the cosmic struggle between good and evil. The emergence of Goliath, therefore, was not an isolated event, but part of a larger narrative of defiance against divine authority. Centuries after the flood, the Nephilim's legacy surfaced in Gath, a Philistine city notorious for its warriors. Goliath, the eldest of his siblings, stood as a towering figure, literally and symbolically. His height, recorded as 6 cubits and a span, approximately 9 feet 9 inches, made him a colossus among men. Clad in armor weighing over 125 pounds and wielding a spear with a shaft like a weaver's beam, he epitomized an indomitable force. Goliath's armor was more than a protective layer. It was a symbol of invincibility. The bronze helmet, the heavy greaves, and the massive shield carried by his shield-bearer all reinforced his image as an unassailable champion. His spear, with an iron point weighing approximately 15 pounds, was a weapon of extraordinary power, designed to instill fear and demonstrate his dominance. But Goliath's significance went beyond his physical prowess. He was a living reminder of the Nephilim's lingering influence, a relic of a rebellious past that continued to defy the chosen people of God. For 40 days, Goliath stood before the Israelite army, taunting them and their God, challenging anyone brave enough to engage him in single combat. His booming voice echoed through the valley, and his arrogance grew unchecked as no Israelite dared to step forward. The Philistines, emboldened by Goliath's presence, saw him as the ultimate weapon, a warrior who could decide the fate of nations through a single duel. This practice of representative combat, while not uncommon in ancient times, took on a unique gravity in the hands of Goliath, whose sheer presence seemed to guarantee victory. In stark contrast to Goliath stood David, a shepherd boy from Bethlehem. Young, unarmed, and seemingly insignificant, David's life revolved around tending his father's sheep. Yet beneath his humble exterior lay a heart burning with faith and courage. David's journey to the battlefield began as a simple errand. His father, Jesse, sent him to deliver food to his brothers, who were soldiers in Saul's army. David's arrival at the battlefield coincided with one of Goliath's daily taunts. The sight of the Israelite army paralyzed by fear left an indelible impression on the young shepherd. To him, the true battle was not between two armies, but between faith and defiance. The contrast could not have been starker, a giant clad in armor, defying the living God, and a young boy armed with nothing but unwavering trust in divine providence. Upon his arrival at the battlefield, David witnessed Goliath's audacious defiance and the fear it instilled in the Israelite ranks. The sight of his countrymen cowering before a blasphemous giant enraged David. To him, Goliath's challenge was not merely a physical threat, but a spiritual affront against the God of Israel. "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine," David exclaimed, "that he should defy the armies of the living God?" 1 Samuel 17:26. David's words reached King Saul, who was desperate for a solution to the Philistine threat. Initially skeptical, Saul dismissed David as too young and inexperienced to face Goliath. However, David's recounting of his encounters with lions and bears while protecting his flock revealed a deeper truth. His courage was rooted not in his abilities, but in his faith. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine, David asserted. 1 Samuel 17:37. Convinced by David's conviction, Saul offered his own armor to the young shepherd. However, David declined, finding the heavy armor cumbersome and unfamiliar. Instead, he chose to rely on the tools he knew best: a staff, a sling, and 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. Armed with these humble weapons and his unyielding trust in God, David approached the battlefield. David's decision to reject Saul's armor was more than a practical choice. It was a profound statement about authenticity and trust. He chose to fight not with the tools of a soldier, but with the skills honed during his years as a shepherd. This act underscored a fundamental lesson. True strength lies in faith and self-belief, not in borrowed means or outward appearances. As he moved forward, every step carried the weight of both uncertainty and faith. The collective fear of the Israelite army bore down on David's shoulders, yet his resolve did not waver. His youthful optimism, coupled with his unyielding belief in divine providence, propelled him forward. The image of the young shepherd, clutching nothing but a sling and a pouch of stones, painted a stark contrast to the towering figure of Goliath. The confrontation between David and Goliath was not merely a clash of 2 individuals, but a collision of worldviews. On one side stood Goliath, the embodiment of brute strength, arrogance, and the legacy of rebellion. On the other stood David, representing faith, humility, and the power of divine providence. As David approached, Goliath scoffed at the sight of a mere boy armed with a staff. "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" he bellowed, cursing David by the gods of the Philistines. 1 Samuel 17:43. But David, undeterred, responded with a declaration that would echo through the annals of history. "You come to me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." 1 Samuel 17:45. This moment was pivotal. It was not merely David's defiance of Goliath, but his unwavering proclamation of faith that set the tone for the battle. The battlefield transformed into a stage for a spiritual contest, where divine power would ultimately prevail over human arrogance. This encounter, though brief, offers profound lessons that transcend time. First, it highlights the power of faith over fear. David's confidence was not rooted in his abilities, but in his trust in God's deliverance. His victory serves as a reminder that challenges, no matter how insurmountable they seem, can be overcome when faced with faith. Second, the story underscores the importance of authenticity. David's refusal to wear Saul's armor symbolizes the value of staying true to oneself.
Now, if that don't wrap up what I be preaching about a lot, I mean, I don't know what will. These tools is all about mindset, you know. You can't have faith without having that mindset to believe and to trust. And these higher vibrations that I talk about a lot, they go hand in hand. Courage, trust, you know, you have more of that. It leads up to abundance. But nevertheless, yeah, you know,
He fought not with borrowed tools, but with the skills and resources he had honed as a shepherd.
being true to yourself. Embarking on a journey, people might feel like they need to canvas you, you know, paint the picture that they need you to be for themselves. But when you're true to yourself, you paint the picture for history to visualize what it is. Just like young boy David, he could have been a different picture in today's history lesson, but because he decided to be himself, his story is his story.
Finally, the narrative reveals the futility of arrogance. Goliath's downfall was not due to a lack
Ever wondered what your home looks like from space? Enter your address and get a 360-degree satellite view of.
Yeah, they gonna hate, but whatever, right?
lack of strength, but
Let me run it back just a little bit. I hate when this shit happen.
sources he had honed as a shepherd. Finally, the narrative reveals the futility of arrogance. Goliath's downfall was not due to a lack of strength, but his underestimation of David, and more importantly, his defiance of the living God. His defeat illustrates that true power lies not in physical might, but in alignment with divine will. The battle between David and Goliath
My bad, I'm running back
utility
one more time.
sources he to oneself. He fought not with borrowed tools, but with the skills and resources he had honed as a shepherd. Finally, the narrative reveals the futility of arrogance. Goliath's downfall was not due to a lack of strength, but his underestimation of David, and more importantly, his defiance of the living God. His defeat illustrates that true power lies not in physical might, but in alignment with divine will. The battle between David and Goliath was more than a physical contest. It was a spiritual war. Goliath's lineage, his armor, and his arrogance represented the enduring defiance against divine order. David's victory, achieved with a simple sling and stone, was a testament to God's supremacy and a foreshadowing of the ultimate triumph of good over evil. As the stone flew from David's sling, striking Goliath's forehead, the giant's massive frame collapsed to the ground. The Philistine champion's defeat sent shockwaves through both armies. The Israelites, emboldened by David's victory, pursued the fleeing Philistines, securing a decisive triumph. The story does not merely highlight the battle, but also invites reflection on its broader spiritual implications. Goliath's presence symbolized the remnants of a corrupt lineage that defied God's order. David's faith and courage reaffirmed the power of divine justice and the victory of light over darkness. This story continues to resonate, reminding us that faith, when paired with action, can overcome any obstacle, no matter how daunting. David's actions also emphasize the ripple effects of courage. His faith inspired an entire army to rise and conquer their fear, turning a moment of hesitation into a resounding victory. This ripple effect serves as a reminder of how one individual's trust in a higher power can transform the destiny of many, reinforcing the timeless truth that with God, even the smallest among us can achieve the extraordinary. The fall of Goliath was not merely the end of one man, but the catalyst for a transformation within Israel. As the Philistine giant's massive frame collapsed to the ground, a new chapter began, one marked by a renewed sense of hope, unity, and divine purpose among the Israelites. Yet this victory was just the beginning of a series of profound challenges, spiritual revelations, and battles that would shape the nation's destiny and redefine the very concept of faith. The defeat of Goliath sent shockwaves through the Israelite and Philistine armies. For the Israelites, it was a moment of divine vindication, a testimony that their God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, was alive and powerful. The sight of David, a mere shepherd boy, standing victorious over the fearsome giant, stirred something deep within the hearts of the soldiers. Fear gave way to courage, hesitation turned into action, and despair was replaced by hope. This collective awakening propelled the Israelite army forward. Emboldened by David's triumph, they surged toward the Philistines, chasing them back to the gates of their cities and plundering their camps. The battlefield, once a stage for mockery and intimidation, now became a testament to the power of faith and unity. However, the ripple effects of David's victory extended far beyond the battlefield. Within the Israelite camp, there was a renewed sense of purpose and identity. The soldiers, who had once been paralyzed by fear, began to see themselves as participants in a divine plan. This shift in perspective laid the groundwork for Israel's future victories and solidified David's role as a leader chosen by God. With Goliath's head in hand, David was brought before King Saul. The young shepherd's bravery and faith were undeniable, and his actions quickly earned him a place in the hearts of the people. Songs of celebration echoed through the towns and villages of Israel, with women singing, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." 1 Samuel 18:7. This public adulation marked a turning point in David's life. No longer was he merely the youngest son of Jesse, tending sheep in the hills of Bethlehem. He had become a symbol of hope, a living embodiment of faith, and a figure who challenged conventional notions of power and authority. David's rise to prominence, however, also sowed the seeds of jealousy and tension within Saul, leading to a complex and tumultuous relationship that would define much of David's early years. David's victory over Goliath was not a mere stroke of luck or the result of superior skill. It was an undeniable demonstration of divine providence. The seemingly impossible odds, a boy with a sling against a giant clad in armor, served to highlight God's intervention and the principle that victory comes not through human strength, but through faith in Him. This theme of divine providence echoed throughout the history of Israel. The Israelites' survival and victories were consistently tied to their faithfulness to God. In the story of David and Goliath, this principle was vividly illustrated. David's reliance on God's power, rather than his own abilities, set a precedent for future leaders and reinforced the idea that.
But yeah, that's just more so about David than Goliath. But the fact remains that it's been a spiritual battle, and it still is a spiritual battle, and it's always a battle of the minds. If David was to be just like the other guys, influenced by the other guys, not being authentic to who he is and who we know he should be, he would have been easily influenced. You know, his mindset would have been, I'm afraid of the fear that everybody else is afraid of, which is Goliath, the giant, the problem, the issue. He had a totally different mindset, which allowed him to conquer, which allowed him to leave a legacy, which allowed him to have more abundance of faith in Christ Jesus, and also where God was leading him. Having that personal relationship with God was the only way he was able to know what steps to take as far as defeating this giant, listening to his heart, being led by his heart, and being led by the truth of who he know he is, having a relationship with God. God will never put you in a situation where you're not victorious, whether, the outside circumstances may look like you're not going to be successful. Of course, it looked like, this giant is going to crush this little boy. No problem. It's going to be over really quick. Which it was over really quick, but not for David. It was over really quick for Goliath. And that also goes to show when you're, engaging in this negative activity, if they had social media, he probably would have been a content creator. Everybody would have been checking him out, talking about the giant, because he had everybody, like they said, that war zone was the stage. It was the stage for mockery. It was the stage for laughery. It was the stage for mockery and deceit, to act like that this is what it is and this is what it's going to be, because he was going against the grain, going against nature, going against God's word, which is nature. And that's why a lot of these things are happening today in this world. Nature is cleaning itself up. Tornadoes, hurricanes, mudslides, all these floods. It's just nature fighting back from the people who hurt this earth and the people in it. It's just cleaning itself up. And I read this story many times. I've heard it many times. Every time I hear it again, I always have a different point of view. The way I look at it, I always get something important from it as well. And my life has been leading me into this moment. No matter what I've been through, no matter what I may go through, this here is enjoying peace in His presence. God will reveal these things unto you. That's why I love the month of August. Not the month itself, but the reading for the month. My birthday coming up next month. I look at all these months slightly different. But nevertheless, like the whole goal, the whole inspiration for this month was talking about true living waters. And you know, we all thirst for something, but whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, streams of living water will flow from within him. That's the modem, that's the motto for this month. It's not too late to believe in God, believe in the dreams that he put in your heart to achieve what you desire to set out for this year. You know, a lot of y'all had goals beginning of the year, you know, whatever it was. And all of these things happen, of course, life happens, but do you still believe in what you wanted to achieve in? And that's basically what I really want to ask you guys. Do you still believe in what you wanted to achieve in? And if not, spend time with some living water so that your blessings can flow from within. The way to get these things done will be revealed unto you. Faith without actions is not going to work. You have to put the work in, spend the time doing the work. And it just is what it is, but I just want this to be an encouragement. Yeah.